It's the Michael Patrick Leahy Show, broadcasting live from downtown Nashville. And now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
And welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Welcome, everyone. It is, Wednesday, November 13th, 2024. We have so much to cover today. We are indeed broadcasting live from our studios in downtown Nashville. You can hear us all across the John Fredericks Radio Network, which is, of course, as you know, in 20 stations in Pennsylvania and Virginia, West Virginia, Georgia, and 2 here in Tennessee. 760 AM WENO in Nashville, 730 AM KQPN in Memphis. You can also watch us on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com and type in the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. And we do put clips up on Rumble. Now, if you want to take advantage and be on the cutting edge of what's going on in media, you can track us on X, formerly Twitter. I'm Michael P. Leahy. I'd love to hear from you. And we also have a call-in number. We're not going to be taking call-ins in this first hour, but our second hour is wide open for phone calls, and we'll be delighted to talk to you. Okay, folks, it's that time of day. Again, it's time for the Morning Rundown, brought to you by the Glock Store, glockstore.com, located right here in Nashville, Tennessee. It's got a retail showroom, but you can order all the Glock accessories you want at glockstore.com from anywhere in the country. Okay, here we go. Here is the Morning Rundown for Wednesday, November 13th, 2024. All right, number one on the Morning Rundown, Trump appointments. I'm going to hit the highlights. Pete Hegseth, nominated to be Secretary of Defense. Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk to head the Department of Government Efficiency. Mike Huckabee, ambassador to Israel. These are all really terrific appointments. And we've got some more appointments to come. Sean Spicer says, you ain't seen nothing yet. So we'll see, who's going to get Treasury, who's going to be the Attorney General, who's going to be at Commerce, who's going to be Health and Human Services. We'll find that out in a bit. Number two, the Senate Majority Leader vote is going on as we speak. And in Washington, D.C., it's 53 United States senators or senator-elect Republicans are choosing to be the majority leader from Senator John Thune, kind of a rhino-y guy from South Dakota, John Cornyn, another rhino-y guy from Texas, and Rick Scott, full-born MAGA senator from Florida. We don't know how it's going to turn out. The momentum at the last minute seems to be going for Rick Scott, but it's a bit of a long shot, I think. But we'll see. We'll see. Senator Marsha Blackburn from here in Tennessee announced late last night that she's backing Rick Scott. That was seen as quite significant. We had that story first up at the Tennessee Star, TennesseeStar.com. That's the flagship of the Star News Network. We have sites in Pennsylvania and Georgia, state-based, but our flagship is TennesseeStar.com. It's been the flagship for 7.5 years. Number three on the Morning Rundown, the Fly on the Wall Award goes to the meeting today in just about 45 minutes between President-elect and former President Donald Trump and outgoing President Joe Biden. They're going to have a meeting to talk about transition. What is that going to be like? It's going to be something. By the way, Melania Trump, typically when they do these things, the incoming First Lady has tea with the outgoing First Lady. Melania said, no thanks. I think she's more than a little bit irritated about the Biden administration at the order of Joe Biden, and probably with the sign-off on First Lady Jill Biden doing her best impression of Edith Wilson, basically approving the raid on her house and going in through her clothing drawers, etc. I don't think she liked that, and why should she? Okay. Number four, Stephen K. Bannon was in a courtroom in Manhattan yesterday. This is on the We Build the Wall fraud claims that the Soros-backed prosecutor Alvin Bragg has been pushing. He was not shy about it. We'll get to what he said. Basically, he held a press conference and said that the hunted Alvin Bragg, Tish James, Jack Smith, Merrick Garland have now become the hunted. Oh, I like that. But still, he's got to deal with that trial, so we'll see how that goes. Number 5, Steve Baker, our journalist friend, pleaded guilty yesterday to 4 misdemeanor charges in a Washington courtroom that was kind of rigged against him. And he'll be with us in our 3rd hour today to talk about that. Steve Baker, a good friend of ours. By the way, when I was, in the zone, shall we say, targeted, if you will, by a Chancery Court judge here in Tennessee on the Covenant Killer Manifesto document that we obtained legally and released parts of. Steve Baker was here for that hearing, and he was, came right in this studio and talked about it. So he had my back then. I have his back now. Number 6, Phil Klein, legal expert, will be talking to us right after this segment about how Mark Elias is still trying to steal an election in Pennsylvania, the Senate election there. So we got that. Then Tom Pappert, number 7. Tom Pappert will be here to talk about what's all going on with the Covenant Killer investigation. They still haven't released a report, and the local television stations got it all wrong. And then, so there we go. That's it. That's the morning rundown. All that here for Wednesday, November 13th, 2024. It's brought to you by our friends at the Glock Store. We're mid-November now, right? This is the time of the year where you think about being thankful for everything you have. And what we have here is a terrific radio program, but we're commercial. We're not sponsored. We're not like NPR. We're not sponsored by your tax dollars, and we don't bend the knee to the government. We say what we think we want to. We say whatever we want to say based on facts, and I can express my opinions and thoughts because we have sponsors. And one of our very favorite sponsors is the Glock Store, glockstore.com. Lenny McGill, the founder, classic American entrepreneur, moved here to Nashville from San Diego in 2020. They started listening to my program right away. They called me up and said, hey, we want to sponsor your show. And they've been our sponsor ever since. Here in Nashville, they have a beautiful retail showroom, the incredible, totally unique Shoot 270 shooting rooms. But first and foremost, the Glock Store, get this now, it's a nationwide online retailer, glockstore.com. Please visit glockstore.com wherever you live in the United States of America and sign up for their interesting and informative sales letters at the bottom of the website. You'll learn about the great products and services they offer, and you'll help support this show, the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. That's glockstore.com, glockstore.com, and thank you, Lenny McGill, my good friend, for being a sponsor of this program for so long. Okay, we got a few clips here during this segment. I want to talk a little bit about our buddy Stephen K. Bannon. And as you know, War Room has been, a phenomenon, and it very much helped the election of Donald Trump in 2024 since its inception. Now, Stephen K. Bannon is being persecuted by the Alvin Bragg, the DA in Manhattan, just as Bragg persecuted Donald Trump. He was in court on these phony fraud charges on We Build the Wall yesterday. Here we have clip 1. Here's Bannon with a message. You got to love this.
Mr. Bannon, do you have any comments?
The people have rendered their verdict. Overwhelmingly, they reject all of this. This is why the radical Democrats are out of power and will be out of power for 50 years.
Yeah, so they captured him. If you were watching on YouTube, that was Steve walking out of the courtroom. People have rendered their verdict, and they have. They are sick and tired of all of this lawfare. Look, the breaking news. Do you see this? It's now breaking. Jack Smith, the persecutor at the Department of Justice level, is going to resign before Trump is inaugurated. Watch out, Jack. Obstruction of justice, abuse of power, prosecutorial misconduct. I think all that's in your future, Jack Smith. Hey, when we come back, if all goes well, Phil Klein will join us. I'm Michael Patrick Leahy.
Hey there, this is Lenny McGill, founder and CEO of the Glock Store. As a proud sponsor of this show, you may have heard Michael Patrick Leahy mention us a few times over the past 4 years. But today, it's me on the radio telling you how pleased we are to be associated with Michael Patrick Leahy and his dedication to the highest levels of professional journalism. Michael Patrick Leahy has been threatened with jail time in bringing the true facts about that Nashville Covenant shooting to his listening audience. Michael Patrick Leahy, you keep doing what you're doing, and we here at the Glock Store will keep sponsoring your show for the good of Nashville and the entire country. And I'm personally inviting all of your listeners to come visit and shoot at the Glock Store. It's where Michael Patrick Leahy learned to shoot a gun for the first time and where he bought his own personal Glock 19. I'm Lenny McGill, founder and CEO of the Glock Store here in Nashville, just minutes from the airports, worth the drive from anywhere, and a proud sponsor of Michael Patrick Leahy and the Tennessee Star Report.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
And welcome back. And we welcome to our Zoom Newsmaker line right now one of the best legal minds in the country, former Attorney General of the state of Kansas, now a professor of law at Liberty University Law School, our good friend Phil Klein. Welcome, Phil.
Good morning, Michael.
Well, delighted to have you on here. I know it's been a very busy week for you, busy week for the country. Now, the good news is Donald Trump is going to be the next president of the United States. And I think he's going to win the popular vote. He's ahead by 3 million. It'll be at least 1 million when it's all counted. 312 electoral college votes for Trump versus 226. But, Phil, there's still a little bit of skullduggery going on out there. And Mark Elias is leading the skullduggery charge. He's trying to steal the Pennsylvania Senate seat from David McCormick. When last I saw, McCormick was up by about, 39,000 votes. But then I saw this something on Twitter X last night. Somehow, magically, they've discovered 20,000 new votes for Casey last night. What do you know about that, and where's that going to go?
Michael, I'm not familiar with that specific detail, and I'm sorry for that. I haven't had a chance to read up on it. But generally what you see is an effort to change rules under the guise of saying we need to allow everybody to vote. I don't believe it's a coincidence that 18 of the 19 states that were won by Kamala Harris do not require photo ID for people to vote. So what you have is Elias challenging deadlines, challenging rejection of ballots, which is required under Pennsylvania law if the absentee ballot is not completed accurately with a proper address, with proper signatures, or it's not postmarked in time. You see all of the efforts to try to selectively eliminate rules that apply to ballots within Democratic strongholds so that these ballots can be counted, which under law they should not be counted.
Very good point. And you made another excellent point. I've seen this mentioned, but I want to highlight this. 18 of the 19 states that Kamala Harris won don't have voter ID. That suggests to me that even though she lost by a couple million votes, end up maybe 1 million votes, that some of the votes that she got may not have been entirely cast by American citizens. Do you see those any changes coming in 2026 and 2028 in those 18 states that allow people to vote without voter ID?
It'll be up to the state legislatures to do that. And unfortunately, we have these structural changes and the push for structural changes across the nation in many, many ways. Same-day registration, automatic absentee ballot lists. And absentee ballots have always been a concern because there's not a trained election official to ensure that the voter completes the ballot. And additionally, to ensure that the voter is not intimidated, misled, or coerced into completing the ballot. And so for a long time in this nation, everybody has recognized those concerns. We have common sense rules to protect the absentee ballots, and those are being eradicated. In particularly blue states with blue legislatures and vertical blue state control up through the governor's office and as well as the Secretary of State. So I think these structural battles are going to continue for some time. The left has demonstrated it's willing to push and even violate the law in order to gain an advantage on elections. And unfortunately, it undermines the integrity and faith in the election process.
Yeah, and you know, I looked at those 19 states where that Kamala Harris won, and I'll just go through them. You got the left coast states, California, Oregon, Washington, and then I'll add Hawaii, right? Those are 4 of the states. Then you have all 6 New England states, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and then the Mid-Atlantic, New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, and to top it off, right in the middle, Colorado and New Mexico. But here's something interesting I'd like you to think about. In Virginia, I think I mentioned Virginia. Virginia and New Jersey are the 2 states where they've got off-year elections for governor. And so we've got a gubernatorial election going on, I think, or a state legislature election going on in New Jersey, and state legislature and gubernatorial election in Virginia. Do you think, and in both those states, New Jersey, I think Harris only won by 5 points. And what was in Virginia? You live in Virginia, like 5 points in the end?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Trump made great gains in Virginia and New Jersey, as well as some of the other states that you mentioned. New York, in specific areas, there were great gains for President Trump in this election. I think there's the potential, but the Republican Party is going to have to come around a set of reforms or proper laws in election management that are common sense and push for that within state legislatures nationally to try to regain what really is necessary for an integral election. And Mike, I don't know if you saw it, but already in Virginia, you've got the left pushing for ranked choice voting.
Oh, that got destroyed. That got destroyed in 8 states. And
yes, and it should, because it entices people to cast a dishonest vote. They vote for their candidate as the top vote, and then as the second vote, they vote for the person who they hope will take votes away from their primary opponent. They don't vote for the second best candidate. So it's a falsehood built into the election system, but the left is pushing that in many ways, and they're starting to push it in Virginia, as I've been reading editorials and so forth. So these structural changes to elections have to be stopped. We've got to get back to common sense. Elections are not that complicated. Voters mark who they want to elect, and we count the marks. But unfortunately, we're not doing it properly in many states right now.
Now, you're a professor of law there at Liberty University. Back in the early 60s, a group of experts at the American Law Institute put together the Model Penal Code, which was the model for many state legislatures. I wonder if Republicans and election integrity experts ought to put out something like the Model Election Code, that then all of these...
Absolutely. And in fact, the American Voters Alliance, which is that I work with directly, has done so in many ways and addressed many of the concerns. What you need is transparency, accountability, and inclusion in elections. It ought to be bipartisan. It is real simple to bring these fixes about. There's just not the political will and focus right now to do it.
Tell us where this group is, and tell us where these codes are, these suggested codes are. And I think it'd be terrific to get these out in states, in these 18 states that don't allow voter ID right now. New Jersey,
yeah, some
Virginia,
states have taken steps to do so and have passed. For example, over half the states have now banned private monies into elections, but we still have other areas that we need to act on. It's the AmericanVotersAlliance.org, and we've placed that out, and some people are picking up the banner and passing portions of it, but they're not addressing the entirety of the concerns.
Yeah, and I think of those 19 states that voted for Harris, we probably ought to pick a couple of them and really focus on it. To me, New Jersey and Virginia would be right at the top of the list.
I think it's a good suggestion.
Well, last question for you, Phil. What's going to happen with the judge in New York, Merchan, who punted for a week on the conviction on these trumped up bookkeeping charges, 34 felony counts against President Trump?
Well, I would tell you what should happen, but you and I agree on that. Your question was, what will he do? I think Merchan will try to look magnanimous while trying to humiliate the president-elect. I'm not quite sure how he will do that.
God, you see, this is the problem, I think, Phil. They're not reading the room. They don't understand that there's been a change. And I think anything that he does like that will backfire. Don't you think?
Well, I do believe one of the underlying reasons that President Trump won the election is because the American people are not buying into this treating different populations differently under the law based upon their political ideology. In other words, the weaponization of government is not selling in this country.
It's not selling at all.
And
Nor, by the way, is ranked choice voting, because all these the billionaires have put a whole bunch of money to support it, and 8 states rejected it because it's dopey and nobody understands it. And on that note, that's my technical term for ranked choice voting, Phil. Dopey.
All right, fair enough.
Hey, good luck with your classes today. Go ahead.
Thank you. But shout out to my daughter. She won her election. She's now a city council member
Congratulations.
in Lynchburg, Virginia.
Congratulations to your daughter, Phil. All right.
Thank you.
Wonderful. We'll see you next week. Up next, Tom Pappert. What's going on with the Covenant Killer investigation here in Nashville? You're not going to believe this. Back after this.
My fellow Americans, I have to tell you about my good friends at D.T. McCall and Sons. They have furniture and appliances and a lot more. They've been family owned in Middle Tennessee for over 100 years, and they're not going to rip you off. No hidden charges, no delivery charges, no charges for all of the crazy things. These are sick people at the lumber yards. These are very sick people. They charge you for cords and hoses and haul off. They charge you for all of these things. They call them hidden charges. It's the type of surprise that you don't want to see. It's like an October surprise, but it's worse. D.T. McCall and Sons, they're not going to do that. They're great people. They're going to give you a great deal. With locations in Lebanon, Carthage, Lafayette, Cookeville, and Franklin, D.T. McCall and Sons will give you the deal of your life. Check them out today or go to dtmccalls.com.
Impersonator not endorsed by Donald Trump.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
And welcome back. Hey, we are joined right now on our Zoom Newsmaker line by our lead political reporter at the Tennessee Star and the Star News Network, Tom Pappert. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Michael.
Well, the election is come and gone. Donald Trump is the president-elect. All of these terrific nominations are coming out. And so we have decided to turn our attention back to a Freedom of Information Act transparency requests that we've had going for some time related to the Covenant Killer Manifesto. And why don't you just bring our audience up to date as to the event itself, the litigation involved, and then I'll ask you what you heard from the Nashville Police Department yesterday about their ongoing investigation.
Of course, Michael. So the Covenant Manifesto, of course, refers to the writings of Audrey Elizabeth Hale. That is the transgender shooter who went to the Covenant School last year on March 27th, 2023, and killed 6 people, 3 students and 3 staff members. Well, since then, the Metro Nashville Police Department has been investigating. One of the things they immediately found within probably an hour of the shooting itself was what they then called a manifesto. It was a journal that Audrey Hale had written. She had another journal with it. When they went to her home, they found out she had up to 20 journals going back to middle school. And in these journals, she was writing about school shootings, how she would commit it, what she would like to do, her gender transition, her love toward women. It was a very, very dark experience to read it, which is exactly what we did when we located a copy or were given a copy from a source familiar with the investigation. So the Tennessee Star and, of course, yourself, Michael Patrick Leahy, are suing the FBI and the Metro Nashville Police to compel them to release the full written records or what Audrey Hale left in her notebooks. Those lawsuits are still ongoing, except for the state lawsuit, which, of course, was met with who I believe is a DEI judge who said not one page shall be released, and at one point threatened Michael Patrick Leahy with jail time.
Yeah, that's a good summary. And then, of course, and that litigation, by the way, just so you know, the state court litigation, we had several other plaintiffs in that case. That litigation began in May of 2023. The judge in the Chancery Court Judge Miles, the one who threatened me with contempt of court for totally trumped up charges, to be honest, right? And then just dropped that charge because we didn't do anything wrong. We legally obtained these documents and we were allowed to publish them under the First Amendment. So July 4th, she issued a long ruling where she said, no, I'm not going to release these because A, there's an ongoing investigation, and B, they've got a copyright claim. The parents of the Covenant Parents Trust, who obtained, they claimed the ownership of all these documents in a transfer from the parents of the killer who inherited them, they claim, because the killer left no will. We're not sure that's true. Anyways, long, involved story. They threatened copyright. They said, you can't release it because we have copyright. They've never filed a copyright. So that case is under appeal. So the judge made a bad decision, and we are appealing that. to appeals court here in the state of Tennessee. We've not heard that response. These cases take forever. So we got that. So we wanted to take a look at, by the way, the copyright infringement claim is totally bogus, totally dubious. And that wouldn't stand up in court at all if we were to be sued by the Covenant Parents Trust. The judge would laugh him out of court.
Well, not that I'm taunting them, Michael, but I think it was September 1st or 2nd that we released the entirety of the 2023 journal by Audrey Hale on TennesseeStar.com, and they've been very quiet. I'll just say that.
Yeah, well, they haven't indicated any indication that they're going to file a copyright infringement lawsuit against us. And if they do, Harmeet Dillon's law firm will defend us. And so, Harmeet Dillon is saying bring it on because they'll clean their clock in federal court. Having said that, okay, so let's address this whole issue on the state case. The Tennessee Public Records Act basically has all sorts of exceptions that would prohibit the release of these of the investigation of the documents, and one of them is if there's an ongoing police investigation. Okay, now remember, the event took place in March of 2023. Here we are now, more than a year and a half later, November of 2024. They haven't released any of this yet, and they've been saying there's been an ongoing investigation. Back in March, they said it's going to be done in July. Well, we're well past July. You had some communication with Don Aaron, Metro Nashville Police Department, about when now the new date for when this investigation is going to be completed. What did you find out? What did he tell you yesterday?
Well, back in July, when we thought it was going to be completed, I talked to Don Aaron. He told me that the investigation had proceeded to a documentary phase where the lead detective was writing his findings, producing reports, etc. Well, I don't mean to insult the detective, but I guess he is a hunt and peck typer moving very slowly, because when Don Aaron spoke to us on November 1st, he confirmed, well, we're still in that documentation phase, and he is unable to give me any sort of ETA on when it might conclude. The latest update yesterday, after our article was published, I guess he saw it and reached out to me. He didn't reply to my email at 9 a.m., but did after the article was out, and said, I had asked him, is it still in the documentation phase, and will this investigation be complete by the end of the year? He responds, that is our goal.
Okay, that is a non-answer, right? That's our goal. What are you talking about? It's sliding. It's sliding. I think I know the answer why it's taking so long. Would you like to know?
I'm waiting with bated breath.
They're inscribing it on cuneiform tablets, right? As the Babylonians did, and it's just a little bit longer to do. No, they're not investigating this. They're delaying it. They are totally delaying it. And now the goal is to release it by the end of the year. Goodness gracious. Can you believe anything they say about when this, quote, investigation is going to be released? Now, what's interesting about this, I'm going to break some news right now. Break some news. You ready? There are two lawsuits that we're involved in. One is in state court, Chancery Court. We lost at the trial court level, and there are other plaintiffs in those cases. Tennessee Firearms Association, a couple others. And so we've appealed it. And it's going to be before the Court of Appeals. It'll take several months for them to decide. But Tom, there's another lawsuit. And by the way, let me just say, in the state court, we've been ably represented by America First Legal. That's a group headed up by Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller just named Deputy White House Chief of Staff. That's Stephen Miller, right? But there's another case that we're involved in where we are the only plaintiff, I individually, and our company, Star News Digital Media, which owns and operates the Tennessee Star, and then our former reporter, Matt Kittle. We are the only plaintiffs in this case in federal court. And we are suing the Federal Bureau of Investigation to release all of these documents. Now, what happens in these mass murderer type situations, the FBI swoops in and they get all the documents and they kind of control the process. And that's what happened here in the Covenant Killer case. They have all the documents. We sued them. We're represented by the Wisconsin Institute of Law and Liberty. And that case, here we are, November 2024. The killings took place in March of 2023. We began the federal lawsuit represented by the Wisconsin Institute of Law and Liberty, in May of 2023. We began the state lawsuit in May of 2023. Now, what happened in May and June of this year, the federal judge who's handling this case, Alita Trauger, said, send me all these documents. I'll review them in camera. Well, she's been reviewing them since June. It's again, taken a long time to review it. And so we don't have any decision from her. But guess what's happened in all this intervening process? There's been a presidential election. And remember, who's resisting us. The defendant in this case is the FBI, represented by the Department of Justice. What's happened in the intervening year and a half? Oh, there's been a presidential election. Donald Trump has been elected president. There's going to be a new attorney general. There's going to be a new attorney general of the United States at the Department of Justice on January 20th, 2025. And I just spoke literally just about half an hour ago with our counsel at the Wisconsin Institute of Law and Liberty. And we have agreed that we will be asking the Department of Justice publicly to remove their objections to releasing all the Covenant Killer documents. And that will come out. There'll be a formal request probably before January 20th that our legal counsel puts out. And guess what? I think the new Attorney General and the new Department of Justice, I think they're going to look very kindly on our request. How about that for some breaking news, Tom?
That is fantastic news, Michael. And I would add one more thing. There's going to be another revolving door in Washington, D.C., and that is at the FBI, where I don't think Christopher Wray is going to last very long under the Trump administration.
Well, Christopher Wray and the FBI, these are the guys that their behavioral assessment unit swooped in that day. And the day of the killings, they swooped in. They were there at the house where the killer resided. And they were involved in getting all the documents there. And so they've had all this stuff since March 27th, 2023. The report on the FBI is that Christopher Wray has indicated he's going to resign before Donald Trump is inaugurated. I think that's great. And whoever the new head of the FBI is could be Kash Patel, who, by the way, is our friend. I don't know if it's going to be Kash, but we'll find out pretty soon. And he's been a guest on this program, and we have a direct line to Kash Patel. I think we can also ask him on this. So, Tom, I think the likelihood that the documents will be released in the federal case by January this year are pretty good. Hey, can you stick around? Because I want to talk about how the local television stations, the synoptic globalist left-wing propagandists, have been misreporting details here on this. Stick around.
Sure thing. See you on the other side.
All right. We'll be back with Tom Pappert. I'm Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
And welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. We're joined by, on our Zoom Newsmaker line, right now by Tom Pappert. Tom, we've been writing about the Covenant Killer investigation since March of 2023. We legally obtained 90 pages of the Covenant Killer's Journal from 2023, and we published it. We actually published, the timeline on this is, we didn't publish those 90 pages. We wrote articles based upon those 90 pages starting in June, while the judge here, Leahy Miles, was considering whether or not to release them. And we didn't publish all 90 pages until September of this year, early September, after we had adequately, covered our legal basis, obtaining representation on the threat by the judge in June to jail me for contempt of court based upon nothing, and then also to have legal representation in the event of a copyright infringement lawsuit in federal court by the Covenant Parents Trust. Now, having said all that, this issue is sort of back in the forefront. For some reason, News Channel 5, which is owned by Scripps and, clearly a left-wing globalist local television station, they suddenly discovered last week everything that we'd been reporting on since June, that the Covenant schooler had suicidal ideations. Yeah, well, you reported that in early June, right? But they've been dishonest in the way that they've reported on this. And I'll begin with Fox 17, which is probably the least offensive of it. Basically, the story was TBI searches for the story was from yesterday. TBI searches home of former officer connected to Covenant shooters, writing leak, and then they say one thing here. They say about us, while Chancellor Leahy Miles ruled the writings would not be released, the Tennessee Star leaked the writings. That's misleading, isn't it? Because it's completely
it reverses the chronology of events, and it implies, or it seems to imply, that you broke the law and I broke the law, which is simply completely untrue.
Yeah, I mean, basically, the judge had all of these, like 1,000 pages under review, under in-camera review, and she said, well, you can't, what I have here that I'm reviewing, I'm not going to release, and nobody associated with the court can release these documents. Well, that's fine. We didn't obtain any of those documents. We legally obtained from a source familiar with the investigation just 90 pages of the March Journal, and we wrote about it, and we didn't release them until September, when we felt we had enough legal representation to defend against all the crazy charges. Then the guys at WSMV, I mean, they are beyond awful in dishonesty. I mean, they did a story where they totally misrepresented, once again, the details here. In fact, this is from November 7th. They said, here's what they said. In September, the Tennessee Star published all 90 pages of what it says was the journal seized during a search of the Covenant School shooter's home and vehicle on the day. They said we said it was legally obtained to its source. We didn't say involved in the Covenant School investigation. We just said a source that was familiar with it. Here's what they said. Oh, this is terrible, because I'm sorry about that. I've got to shut this off because you can kind of continue. They claimed that we were prohibited by the judge from releasing these documents. Not true at all. That audio was when you bring up WSMV, they always play these advertisements. Your thoughts on the dishonesty of WSMV, continuing in the dishonesty of their reporter Stacey Cameron, right? Who's the one that called up the judge and said, "Hey, they're doing these stories, and you got to hit them with contempt of court." Tell us about how bad WSMV is.
It's very disappointing, and I hope that this is not a pattern that they're trying to create here, where the last time a media outlet basically got the facts wrong related to our reporting about the Covenant School, it resulted in a judge threatening you, Michael Patrick Leahy, with contempt of court. New lawyers had to get involved. It was a big ordeal. And it seems to me that that almost put a chip on these folks' shoulder, where now they seem to have this illusion that, oh, well, if I go report something, and maybe if I get something a little bit wrong, I can make Mike's life really difficult. And this cannot be allowed to happen. And I hope that these local journalists realize that the world is a lot smaller than it used to be. This is going to follow them. People have the internet. People can go read the Tennessee Star. This is not the olden days where they're going to smash the competition by getting things wrong intentionally or perhaps unintentionally. No, this is the future where we have things like X, and we're going to confront people who get it wrong, and we're going to get it right.
On the Covenant School journal that we released and the Covenant School manifesto, I can tell you that all of the local television reporters, to varying degrees, are dumb as rocks and dishonest, and that their bosses are dishonest, and they're knowingly dishonest. And in particular, everything that Stacey Cameron at WSMV here, the great television station, everything that he's reported is false. And we have looked at, whether or not we're going to take legal action on it. We've been so busy. We've been so busy, Tom, we haven't. But when they're trying to resurrect, what they're trying to do, I can tell you exactly what they're trying to do. They're looking down the pike and they're saying, Trump won the election. There's going to be new attorney general, and the Department of Justice is likely to withdraw their objection to this. What can we do to kind of create a problem? That's what they're trying to do. And they're not being honest in their reporting. And I think what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to push back. And all I'm telling you is local globalist synoptic television news stations, watch out, because we're not going to put up with it anymore. There you go, Tom. Thanks for that. Another story. We made more news.
2 breaking news stories. I got to come on the show more often.
There you go. Tom Pappert, thanks for joining us. We'll be back with more after this.